friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. It's a Saturday morning, it's beautiful sunny outside. I need to make some bread for tomorrow for our lunch after church, and we have some friends coming over, of course, and this is going to be a little bit different than your average bread. We're going to be making Rosemary breadsticks. Now this is a recipe that I created because I wanted something that tasted like the rosemary dipping bread at Macaroni Grill. I can take the dipping part or leave it. I just leave it. The rosemary is what I was after. I wanted that flavor, and I think I nailed it. So go with us as we make some rosemary dipping bread, but in a breadstick form. Some of our guests are going to be young ladies tomorrow, and I thought this would just be kind of more appealing than just a chunk of rosemary bread. So anyway, we're going to get started by using our stand mixer. I'm going to put a little bit of honey in the bowl, and I'm just going to be eyeballing this, but don't let that scare you off. I'm going to tell you about how much I'm using. So we're going with about 2 teaspoons of honey. This is not raw honey, because once I bake it, all those great properties that raw honey have in it are going to be avoided anyway. So we're just going to start with regular honey, but do make sure it's real honey and not just some manufactured look-alike. This is 1 cup of whole milk I have in this. I've just heated it up on the stovetop, but it's about bath water warm, and I will tell you this, between 105 and 110 is ideal. Over 120 will be detrimental to your yeast, and your bread probably won't rise because it'll kill off most, if not all, of the yeast. So just make sure that it's not above 120 degrees if you have a thermometer. But the best way I can tell you is just nice warm bath water. That's a great temperature. I've made bread with cold liquid before, and it was fine. But too hot, that could kill it. Now, I will say this, you don't have to use milk. You can use water for this. I just happen to have an abundance of some milk that I'm not going to use for anything else. So we're using milk in this. Milk tends to make it a little richer. I think you can probably tell the difference when you touch the bread or taste the bread. But as far as making it unappealing or not worth eating if you use water, it's not going to happen. I usually use water in this. We're going to put about almost 2 teaspoons of yeast in this, just shy of 2 teaspoons. I know that my yeast is good because I use it continually, and it hasn't been bad well, yesterday I used it, so it was good yesterday, so I don't think it's gone bad since then. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our other ingredients. If you're not sure that your yeast is 100% active or very fresh, go ahead and let it sit in here for a little while. And because the yeast will wake up and it'll want to eat, just like a baby. It wants to eat. As soon as it wakes up, it's going to start getting foamy and active, and you'll be able to tell if your yeast is good or not. If it's not good, do not proceed with this. You'll waste your ingredients. All right, now we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of good quality olive oil in there. And I'm going to take this bowl over here because my flour container is over here in this part of the kitchen. We're going to add 3 level cups of plain flour. Mine is just organic plain flour. So if you don't have organic, please go with unbleached. If you're wanting to make better choices in the things you cook and the things you eat. All right, we've got our 3 cups of flour in there. We're going to add in a teaspoon of salt. This is pink Himalayan salt. And this is where the magic happens. I just went out and cut some little rosemary leaves. I have a fresh rosemary plant in my sunroom, and it is so fragrant. It's unbelievable. we're going to be adding about a teaspoon of fresh rosemary. Now, if you have dried rosemary, go with a teaspoon as well, because the dried rosemary isn't quite as flavorful as the fresh, but then the fresh has a little bit more moisture to it, so it's going to kind of even out. So add about a teaspoon of that. Here's what the fresh looks like, and I just chopped it up in little tiny pieces. We're going to be adding more to the top of this once it bakes, along with something else that's going to bring the flavor out, so don't think this is it as far as the amount of rosemary. All right, if you've ever watched one of my videos before and we've made bread, it's kind of the same routine. We're going to mix it for 5 minutes, we're going to rest it for 5 minutes, then we're going to turn the mixer back on and mix it for 40 minutes. So right now is the 5 minutes. We're going to turn the mixer on, not too high, you don't want the stuff slinging out on the counter, but you want to mix it well enough to where it's coming off the sides of the bowl. And I'll set my timer for 5 minutes. All right, we're going to turn our mixer off. I'm just going to push some of this dough off the top of the hook down toward the bottom. Your dough should feel like soft baby skin. That's the only thing I can think of that best describes this. I've been saying that for years. It just feels like soft baby skin. It shouldn't be too wet, but your mixer should not be struggling and it feel too dry, because that just means it needs more liquid added to it. If you've been mixing this first 5 minutes and you're like, it's kind of dry, it doesn't feel like soft baby skin, go ahead and add just about a teaspoon to a couple of teaspoons of water to it. Mix it for another couple of minutes, get that incorporated in there. The dough really needs that hydration to it for it to rise really well at the end. Again, you don't want it to be too wet, not too dry, so soft baby skin, that's my best description of it. All right, we're just going to let this rest for about 5 minutes and then we'll come back. All right, we're going to turn our mixer back on. It's been resting for 5 minutes. That was just to let the flour absorb all the moisture in there and that gluten really get to going. So now's when we're going to ramp up the activity on the gluten, and we're going to mix this for 40 minutes. Same speed, don't do anything different other than just what you did the first 5 minutes. And set your timer for 40 minutes. Whew, okay. My mixer migrates, but it's old. I'll use that as an excuse. Maybe there's something wrong with it. I don't know. All right, unplug our mixer. And the dough gets pulled off that. Now, this is super easy to handle right now, but it's not ready. Next is what's called the second rise. No, next is what's called the first rise. It's just rested so far. It hadn't risen yet. So we're going to cover this. If you have a disposable shower cap like this, put that over it. It keeps the heat and the humidity in really, really nicely. But if you do not have one of those, a lint-free kitchen towel will work great. So no greasing the bowl. I'm not sure why I see professional cooks do this on television or on videos. They'll say, and grease your bowl. Why? This doesn't need it. All right, we're going to cover that up. We don't need our mixer anymore, so you can put that up at this point. So we're going to let this rise for an hour. 1 hour. It's going to be about doubled in size, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the heat in your room. Right now, it's pretty warm in my kitchen, not just stifling hot, but it's a good temperature, so it should do just fine. It'll be about double in size. Now, once that hour is over with, we will then shape our dough. So whatever you decide to do with it, whether it's one long loaf, whether it's a round bowl shape, whether it's individual rolls, or if you want to do breadsticks like I'm going to do. That's our next step. So get your stuff all cleaned up, let this rise for an hour, go do something fun, and we'll come back in just a minute. Okay, our timer has gone off. This has been resting or rising for an hour. That's our first rise. And you can see how fluffy this is. Sorry, I deflated it before I showed it to you. Get my, whoops, hello, come back. Get my bench scraper. And not a lot of this sticks to the bowl. There's going to be a little residual you'll need to wash out, but it's not like the whole blob of dough wants to stick to it. It's just not that type of dough. I don't know what kind other people are making, but this is, it's not this. Because you don't need oil in your bowl. You have oil in the dough already, and it's not sticky. Set the bowl aside, and we're going to roll this out just a bit because I need to divide it up into sections. Hoping you can see that. We'll have 6 people at our dinner table, so I'll make 12 breadsticks. So they're not going to be teeny tiny ones. And you don't have to get them precisely the same size, but it's good to get pretty close. Okay, so we've got 12 sections here. Give that to a corner piece. The corner pieces kind of get a bad rap. They don't get near as much as the center pieces. All right. We're just going to take each one of these and roll it out. Then I'm going to roll it up like a straw. So pretty much that is our breadstick shape. Just like that. You can see those little flecks of the rosemary in there because the rosemary is fresh. You don't really get that with dried rosemary as much, but this looks really pretty. See the little speckles in there? And you want to be sure and keep them seam side down just so they don't unroll and open up as they're baking. Now remember, we still have to let these rise again, so they'll get a lot fluffier than what they are now. All right, we'll put these not quite touching one another if you have room on your pan, because once they rise, they'll probably be touching each other. All right, I'm going to get a towel, put over this and put it in my lower oven and turn the light on, because it's going to give enough humidity where it'll rise really nicely. But also, did I say humidity or heat? It'll have humidity because these still have moisture in them, but there's also heat from the light in the oven that'll cause the humidity to stay in there, and it'll heat up nicely. And it's a good place to rise your dough. Water heater closet, great place to rise your dough, but if you don't have an issue with it being too cold in a room, then just about any place is fine. You just want to make sure and put a towel over it to keep it from drying out. We're going to set our timer for another hour. And that's going to be our second rise right there. So 2 rises. First one was in the bowl, second one on the pan. When we come back, we are going to bake these off. And then when they come out of the oven, we're going to put the secret sauce on them. So it's going to be really good. So stay tuned. I want to show you what these look like before we put them in the oven. They're considerably puffier than when we put them in there to rise. There's just enough heat in the oven where it gives it a good place to rise. All right, we're going to pop these in the oven. I have the oven preheated. The indicator just went off that the oven's preheated. It's at 350, and we're going to set the timer for 15 minutes. I can always add more time to it, but I can't take it off once I've set it for 20 and they start looking too brown on the top. So we're going to set it for 15 minutes. Turn that lower light off, and we'll be back when I take them out of the oven, and I'll show you what we put on the top of them. That's the best part, trust me. All right, I added about 3 minutes to that because I looked in the oven at 15 minutes and they still weren't quite as brown as what I wanted them. All right, this is what our breadsticks look like. And as you can tell, they're obviously risen and kind of sticking together. So this is our sauce we're going to put on the top. I have 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter in this little pan right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me tip this over so you can see it. Just melted butter. And I'm going to put in there about a teaspoon more of the fresh rosemary that I went out there and picked a few more leaves and chopped those up. And this is the key to it, is garlic salt. This is not garlic powder, this is garlic salt. There's a difference, and you can make your own. But I'm going to put about half of a teaspoon, let's go with 3/4 of a teaspoon of garlic salt in there. Man, as soon as it hit that butter, it smells so good. Ooh. Give that a stir, and with a pastry brush or something similar, we're just going to brush this on. Now, I won't be serving these until tomorrow, but they'll be fine just heated up like this. But we didn't want to put this on there before we baked them because overheated garlic or burned garlic does not taste good. I used to think, it's garlic, how can you mess it up? Well, I did. So I'm either a genius or I'm just really good at messing stuff up. But overheated garlic, whether you're sauteing it in a pan or baking it on something where it's exposed to high heat, it can get really bad tasting. All right, this butter is going to be able to soak into this. And that rosemary is just smelling fabulous too. Even Zoe thinks it smells fabulous. You can hear her over there making a noise. Zoe, I don't know what you want. All right, pan's pretty much cleaned out. We have all this brushed. Like I said, these are going to cool off, but this butter will kind of soak into that bread, keep it soft. And tomorrow we'll heat these up right before dinner to serve with our meal. And I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed in these. All right, I'll give you a closer look at these. And this is our rosemary breadsticks. From scratch, of course. No processed sugar. And these are fabulous. All right, hope you give these a try. Recipe is in the description as always, and we look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. Bye, guys.